you're joining us, welcome. This is the Appreciative Recovery Show. We believe that self-compassion, curiosity, and connection are foundational values that, if cultivated as a daily practice, make any path toward wellness filled with joy and wonder. My name is Kelly Knox. I am the host of this show. Today, we will be talking about how cultivating these values as a leader of a community nonprofit can make that leadership transformational, both within the organization and within the community. Our guest today is Julie LaFontaine. She is the executive director of the Open Door in Gloucester. Julie is a self-described data junkie, kitchen maven, DNA hunter, beachcomber, nonprofit executive, and writer. She has been the executive director of the Open Door for 16 years and involved with the Open Door for 20 years. A favorite quote of hers, penned by the author Neil Gaiman, is, "I hope that in this year to come you make mistakes, because if you are making mistakes, then you are making new things, trying new things, learning, living, pushing yourself, changing your world. You're doing things you've never done before, and more importantly, you're doing something." I love that quote, Julie.
Oh, it's great to be here, Kelly. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And that quote really is a good reminder that if we're making mistakes, we're living and we're doing something right.
Right. Yeah. Even when we're making mistakes, we're doing something correctly, right? So, as you know, Appreciative Recovery is about helping people to incorporate and cultivate self-compassion, curiosity, and connection in their lives. And can you talk to us just a little bit about how those three values play a role in your life and in your leadership role?
Yeah, so I think that, first and foremost, it's important to stay curious. And I think the day that our curiosity goes is the day maybe we should, hang up our running shoes. But to stay curious about life, stay curious about yourself, stay curious about things that you don't know. I think that really play largely into leadership. It allows you to be very focused on what's in front of you, the people who are around you, and I find them to be curiosity to be a valuable thing.
Right.
Yeah.
How about connections, like with your staff, with people in the community? How important is that when you look at the leadership piece of it?
So it's interesting. A few years ago, I actually did one of those Gallup Strength Finder tests, and basically they operate on the premise that there are 32 strengths from which everyone operates, and but what the test will actually do is identify your top 5. And connectedness was in my top 5, and it made sense to me when I saw that. And that's just, understanding that the way we live our lives, how we interact with one another, now, in the past, in the future, is all connected, and it has an impact on community and those around you. And so in terms of team and leadership with my role at the Open Door, I think that we spend time making sure that we are connecting around little things, so that when the big things come along, we have really a framework from which to work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So the other piece of the three triad that I like to talk about is self-compassion. How about talking a little bit about how self-compassion can play a role as a leader?
Yeah. So I will say, Kelly, that's a tough one. I think that I have a lot of compassion for many things and many people, but I am not one of those naturally, so I have to work at it. But I think that it's become more clear to me over the years that people look at how you interact with others, but how you are taking care of yourself as an indicator of how you're doing. And so it's something that I have to keep coming back to, working on daily. I know that, the show is Appreciative Recovery, and the recovery world has some really great sayings, and the reason that they do is because they make sense and they work. And it's something that I have been focusing on recently is that, we want to look for progress and not perfection. And I think sometimes, we can be really hard on ourselves when we're not producing that perfect piece that we want to produce, or that perfect whatever. And really progress is the goal rather than perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the quotes on my website, on the Appreciative Recovery website, is if I forget exactly how it goes, but if someone were to ask you to list 10 things you loved,
yeah,
how would you make the list? Would you make the list? And I thought, when I read that, I was like, I would never even have thought of putting myself on the list. So it is progress, not perfection. Right? So let's see. What are some practices that you use to help keep some of these, the connection piece, the self-compassion? We talked a little bit about that, but are there any particular daily practices that you use to help cultivate not only these values, but other values that you use as a leader?
Well, I would say in a perfect world, when I'm doing things not perfectly necessarily, but making progress, is getting into a routine and keeping it. So for me, something that's really valuable is making sure that when I get up in the morning that I don't just dive into my email or the day and start working on projects or one more thing before I head into work, but actually spend some time in meditation or reflection, to do a reading. And I often find quotes that mean something to me from my reading, so I'll think about it and talk about it. And my husband and I actually have recently recommitted to a time in the morning that we will actually sit together while we're having coffee and share something and talk about it, and just incorporating that meditation and time to make sure that I'm feeding the soul before I jump into the day makes a difference for me. Certainly there are times that we can't do that, and then you have to find other ways to make up for it. But I'm always glad when I can kind of return the ritual of return to something that I know is good for me.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, routine is a big one for me as well. What that's a great one right there. Are there other routines that you sort of kind of fit in throughout your day that help you kind of reconnect with yourself?
Well, another really centering thing that I do have to remind myself to do, and it seems just so strange that we would need to remind ourselves to do it, and that is to breathe. Oftentimes when we get busy, we are going through the day from one thing to the next, and I find I almost have this sense of holding my breath. I'm not actually taking a deep breath all the way. And so I have found that if I actually stop and close my eyes and take some really deep breaths, it helps center me when I don't have time to go take a walk, or this is just not a day that I can leave an hour early to make sure that I do X, Y, or Z. It's a way to have a mini recharge right in the middle of your day.
Yeah, I think that is a great advice. Some people, it's such a simple thing, and you think that you're breathing, but to actually take time to say, am I breathing? You realize you're not doing that deep breath that really connects you.
I find even as I'm sitting here with you, I'm going, I'm kind of holding my breath. I'm going to start take a few deeper breaths. So yes.
Yeah. So speaking of busy, you are truly one of the busier people that I know. You lead the Open Door. You're the president of the Gloucester Rotary, I believe, this year, correct?
That is correct.
And you sit on a few boards, and I know at least one is in Boston. So, breathing is one way that you stay present. What are other ways that you can stay present as you're running to all these different commitments?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really helpful for me is to remember that there's always another day. And that I don't have to finish everything in this day. I mean, clearly we have to meet deadlines and we have to make sure that things are on track and making progress. But in the world of nonprofit, there's always one more thing to do. And it's good to just remember that it'll be there in the morning when you come back. To be fully present, I've made up some rules for myself that I'll only be involved in a certain number of things. And so right now I'm kind of at the pinnacle of the very most things I can be committed to. Being the president of Rotary is something that you actually get asked to do 6 years before you serve. You have plenty of opportunity to ramp up to it. They have this really great process for getting you ready to be president. So I'm thrilled to be serving my club and serving my community in this capacity, but I will be glad when it's done. And it's a good group. Rotary's a good group of people doing a lot of good in the community, and they are a club that really, they don't need a lot from their president. They know what they're doing, and so I'm just checking in with them, and stuff is moving forward.
Yeah, I have a great affinity myself for Rotary. I think their major saying is service above self.
That is correct, yes.
Let's talk a little bit about service and the importance of that. I mean, obviously, as a community leader, you're a service person, right? So, but how important is service when it comes to leadership and how people view you and what that means?
Well, I think that in this day and age, it becomes really important for you to find common ground with people. And there are many places to disagree about things. But when it comes to community and when it comes to service, what we hold in common has to be greater than our differences. And I find that a lot with Rotary. It brings a diverse group of people to the table, different religions and political views and backgrounds. But when we come together, it's service above self and we're doing something for the community. In terms of leadership, I think that it is important for people to see you giving back, but more than having people see you do it, there's something that happens for me inside when I give back, and it kind of resets things in a way that makes me prioritize properly, makes me remember what's most important, and maybe the to-do list on my desk is not the most important thing to do, but to actually, get out and get involved. For me, at the Open Door, there are times that I'm working at my desk, but I can get up and walk back and go to the kitchen or walk through the dining room during a meal time and talk to people and connect, and it reminds me this is community. This is what matters.
And the thread I hear underneath your words is sort of gratitude. I feel that essence from you.
Yeah.
Does it bring that up?
Yeah. So I do. I feel a lot of gratitude for life. Sometimes you get second chances for things, and so I feel like I'm in a place in my life that I really appreciate my community and the things around me. Sometimes when you go through a tough thing and you find your community by your side, that's a good thing. And I would say yes, I do feel grateful. I do feel grateful, and when I find myself drifting towards wanting to be dissatisfied with something or upset by something or just kind of like hold on to my righteous indignation about something, if I can let go and drop into a place of gratitude for whatever it is, I have a better mindset. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So before I really got to know you, we became Facebook friends.
Oh yes, Facebook.
Facebook. I love your Facebook posts. They're very inspirational. And they're honest, they're authentic, and they express struggles of staying true to our values in daily living. So you're just sort of real on them. And that's not an easy quality to find in a person, let alone as a leader of a community. So I really appreciate that about you. One of our favorite authors, I believe, we have this in common, is Brene Brown. Yeah. And she just recently came out with a new book, Dare to Lead. Have you read it yet?
I have not read Dare to Lead yet, no.
Do you know about it?
I do,
Yeah.
yes.
So a quote from the book is, "Daring leaders who live into their values are never silent about hard things." So what does that quote mean to you? And what are the pros and cons of consulting your personal values when making decisions as a leader?
So, I think one of the hardest things for all of us is to be vulnerable. And I think that's why we're so drawn to Brown's work, is because it's all about vulnerability. And you can actually find strength in your vulnerabilities. I think that for me, I learn more from hearing about people's mistakes or where they haven't done something perfectly than I ever do about someone who did everything perfectly and made no mistakes.
Is there such a person?
I really don't think there is, but there are different approaches to how you present your leadership, how you present your life, how you present, the struggles that are real. And I think that people are helped more by seeing your imperfections than your perfections. Yeah. And I certainly have plenty of imperfections. I am not hiding, even if I thought I was, I'm not hiding them from anyone.
Right.
But to own them, there's some power in owning them and being who you are, to be who you are, and to be real about it, to be honest about it. And then to just kind of endeavor to keep a tidy soul. And that is something that, I work on. I find that there are times that I go along and everything is, falls into place and it feels easy. And then I'm sure this happens to you too and to our listeners, but, where everything goes hard, nothing goes easily. So to name it, to name it when it happens, go to someone and say, I'm not sure what's happening here, but this feels hard, this feels wrong, can we talk about it? I find that I have more success with that than to, not name it or to pretend that nothing is wrong.
Right. Yeah. So speaking hard truths
Mm-hmm.
is actually tidying your soul. I like that, right? Yeah. So, let's see. Another community leader that I admire, because I admire you, is Linda Saris. I think that's how you say her name. She's the executive director for Leap for Education.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. So I ran into her yesterday, and she was telling me about this project that she did. She actually did it with a volunteer consultant. So they did a survey, and they surveyed the staff to learn what the staff thought about the culture at Leap for Education. And I thought, wow, that is really courageous. And it really taps into the curiosity piece, right? I mean, it's courageous because you don't really know the answers you'll get.
Right.
And digesting answers that are difficult to hear are, that's not easy. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you think about that process and how that can help people grow as a leader. Like if you did it with Open Door, how would that help you grow as a leader? How would that help the folks at Open Door grow, or at any organization? Right?
Yeah, so I think, one of the toughest things to do is to hold up a mirror and be willing to look into it. And certainly going out and surveying or a 360 review sometimes can be that. It takes courage, and it makes you vulnerable because you don't necessarily know what people are going to say. But I do think that if you're willing to hear it, if you get some feedback that's not what you would hope for, if you're willing to get past the reaction of, oh my gosh, I hate this, or all the reasons that it might not be true, to say, well, what about it is true? Because someone thought it, felt it, added it to some feedback. What can I learn from this? And, I know in my own life and process, one thing about being a leader is that people are often not shy about telling you all the things that you should do. And I have left myself open to that process because I always learn something, even if it's contrary to how I view it. If someone comes to me and says, well, one thing that you should think about is X, they're probably right. I should think about it, because if they think I should, then there may be 10 other people who think it, and I can be a better leader. I can be more informed. It gives me something to be curious about. I'm curious about why you feel this way. Mm-hmm. How would you see this looking differently? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it gives you the tools to continue to that process of learning and growing. So.
Right. And it offers the opportunity for real conversation too, because you're listening to what someone has to say.
Right.
You might not agree with it, and you might not make any changes based on it.
Right.
Because it might not be real for you, but
right.
it's real for someone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that goes into the whole connection piece, right? Doesn't that strengthen our connections?
I think it does, and I think if we don't do that, whether it's, you asked the question specifically about leadership, but as an organization, if you don't listen to what people are saying, you're tone deaf, you're letting people know you're tone deaf, and you're going to cut yourself out of something that might be good, for the organization and good for the community. So even when it's hard, listen.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Open Door.
Okay.
And the holidays.
Okay. So, the Open Doors mission is to alleviate the impact of hunger in the community. And we do that year round, 365 days a year. We have several food pantries and mobile markets and summer meal programs, senior soup and salad. Really, if it's about food, we're on it. Last year, we served 7,747 unduplicated people.
Wow.
With 1.8 million pounds of food. And I always like to just kind of put that in perspective, because I don't say, oh, Kelly, I ate 4.5 pounds of food yesterday. But I might say I ate 3 meals yesterday. And so to translate pounds into meals, 1.8 million pounds of food is really 1.5 million meals, or just over 1.5 million meals. And so, it's work that we do year round, but we're coming up on our holiday season, and in particular around the holidays for Thanksgiving in November and the December holidays, we like to make sure that a family has all of the items that they need to make a dinner at home. And the reason that we do that is that, when you were growing up, you probably have memories of your holidays around the table.
Yeah, I can almost smell it now.
Yes, and the recipes and the traditions. So by providing these items for someone to prepare in their own home, there's an opportunity to make those memories in the kitchen. Grandma teaching the granddaughter or grandson how to make an apple pie, and then you sit down around the table. And when I was growing up, my dad always had to have Waldorf salad. That's the one with the walnuts and the marshmallows and the grapes, and
right.
But that was just something my mother always made. And so the Open Door really helps people put not only food on the table, but make memories and reinforce traditions for families. For November and December, we are looking to provide 2,500 turkeys and all of the fixings, so for Thanksgiving and the December holidays. And we really need some help getting that done. So if folks are looking for a way to give back $30, a $30 donation at foodpantry.org, we'll provide a turkey and all of the fixings for 6 to 8 people.
Wow.
And that's a way that people can get involved. And then we have some food drives coming up if people want to volunteer and help with that. So
that's 2,500 families that you'll be helping, right? And 2,500 families who are going to connect around food and this holiday tradition.
Yes. So it's it's more than food. It's really strengthening families, and ultimately strengthening community.
Right. So that's Wonderful. Is there anything that we haven't talked about in relation to authentic leadership, in relation to the open door, that you would like our audience to know?
Yeah. Well, I think that, it's important to, check in with yourself and check in with each other. Sometimes accountability is good to say, hey, how am I doing? Amongst our leadership team at the Open Door, we all have someone we're paired up with to do some check-ins with, as we've made commitments around, communication and other things, and it is progress and not perfection.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, sure. So folks listening might not know this, but every year the Rotary International chooses a theme of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And this year's theme is Be the Inspiration. So I want to just say I can't think of a better person to lead the Rotary this year than you, because you are an inspiration.
Thank you.
I think a lot of our listeners will agree with that.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And again, if you want to help out the Open Door during the holidays, you can go to thefoodpantry.org and donate $30 for a holiday basket, which will provide a turkey and all the fixings for a family of 6.
6 to 8, I think it'll feed. Yeah.
6 to 8 people. That's a pretty good bargain there. And if you want to learn more about Appreciative Recovery, you can go to appreciativerecovery.org. And if you have any questions about the show, about the Open Door, you can email us at info@appreciativerecovery.org, and I'll forward that email off to Julie if it's about Open Door. And if it's about Appreciative Recovery, I will answer it for you. So thank you again.